Okay, so our final comedy that we are grading is Raising Hope, which we have to do because there's a new showrunner and changes, blah, blah, blah.
Changes.
I gave it a B.
Give it a B+.
All right, not so different, not so terrible.
Different.
I gave it a B because I feel like the first couple episodes of the season didn't make me feel like there were any behind-the-scene changes, and then they did.
Interesting.
So if I was just grading the first two the way that I wrote my pre-premiere review, it would have been a lot higher because I felt like it was the show we always knew and loved. You know, the heart, the quirk, like these characters are all the same. And then I did feel like you started to notice, I hate to compare it to Community, but I'm going to only for one reason. In season 4 of Community, when Dan Harmon left, I felt like they were doing a lot of the quirky things just to do them. I felt like the show wasn't about anything anymore.
Right.
And I feel that way here with Raising Hope now. I feel like they've lost a lot of like what the show is about, and they're writing to beats. And so they'll write to, here's the crazy thing this week, and here's the message we have to learn from it, but it loses a lot of the organic heart and along the way. But I also think that some of the risks that they're taking in doing the isolated stories, while I love them from a tonal point of view, like I loved the Rear Window with Garrett and Martha, I felt like it was so weird that it was isolated. Like, I would have loved it more if you were able to bring in all the characters to it, so it felt like this is just a creative, thematic episode of this show, rather than, wait a minute, all of a sudden it's the Bert and Virginia show.
Right.
I love Bert and Virginia. I actually would probably watch a show just about them, but that's not what Raising Hope is.
Yeah.
So I just feel like some of these things that they're trying aren't really working for me.
It's interesting because I don't know which episode you most felt disconnected to in terms of this season versus, Greg's time.
Sure.
But they brought over episodes from last season to this season.
Oh, yeah, I know.
So it's interesting to me that
But
after...
I relied on I can't say it's all the showrunner changes' fault. Like some of these thematic changes,
right.
That's the reason.
Right.
It's the thematic change, whoever's idea that was,
right. No, and it's interesting because, I was talking about this with a friend, and the other day, and it was after watching the Christmas episode, where I very much feel like this is still Raising Hope. Like, there are, with Community, it did feel like...
No, I mean, it's a
broad
thing to compare it to Community.
It felt like, in some ways, it was Community fan fiction brought to life.
Sure.
With the actors having to play it out, which is never
not,
fun
and
for
that's
anyone.
not this extreme.
And I don't feel, I feel like the heart is still there. I feel like they're just as kind of crazy as ever. And I like that we're getting to see more of Hope. I'm like, when I somehow managed to forget every single time I see the Christmas episode that she's gonna sing, because I had talked to Mike about it. He's like, we got her to sing, and I'm like, oh, that's cute. And then I saw it on screen, I'm like, oh my gosh, she's singing. And then I rewatched it when I re-aired, was it on Christmas, I guess? The days are blurring, it's all very weird. When there's no TV to ground me, I don't remember what happens.
True.
But,
True.
I rewatched it, on Wednesday night, and I was just like, oh, it's the cutest thing. But, with these, whenever characters are so extreme, there's always a limit as to how far you can take them. Like, you can...
Right.
Like, and I think that...
But I don't care if they take them to crazy places, as long as A, there's a reason.
Right.
B, it doesn't feel like an episode that you can, lift out, and then it doesn't affect the universe.
Right.
But for me, really for me, the major changes that I don't like the disconnect with the characters within the story.
Yeah.
And I think it's natural. Sabrina and Jimmy are married now, and so they don't live with their parents anymore, and so it's natural that they'll have their own side stories going on.
Yeah.
But I feel like the episodes itself don't balance the different stories as well as they used to.
Yeah, it's interesting because I feel like when this is a very, very, very weird comparison, but back in the day, SVU used to do, I know, that told me what weird, they used to do tandem episodes where basically they'd have leads, like they'd split up the cast and kind of do, half the cast took kind of lead on one episode.
Yeah,
and
that's normal. Any any half-hour comedy does that too, where like this week it's this person for the A story, this
right,
week and that's fine if they're
more
balanced.
Right, but it was more overt, and I feel like it's because it'd be like sometimes you wouldn't see the other actors in the episode at all because they were shooting at the same time, so it was a whole thing. And I don't think you could do that with Raising Hope because it is a family thing, but I kind of do wonder if you could do something because you barely see like Howdies, for instance,
right?
And like so I wonder if at any point if the show does by some chance live on, if they might end up focusing 1 week more on Burton, Virginia, and 1 week with kind of like little bits and pieces of.
Well, I feel like that's why they're starting it now, is to integrate that idea. All I'm saying is I don't love it as much as the way that the balance has been in the past. And it's not, it might just be the nature of the particular stories that they're doing.
Yeah. And
it also might, I think some of it for me is just, I'm sitting there so used to one thing that when someone's not there, I'm wondering why they're not there. I'm wondering why they don't have a story that week or what's going on. Like, I like those characters and I want to see them more involved. Yeah. And I'm not even talking about like supporting characters like the people from Howdies, but I mean like Sabrina and Jimmy didn't have a whole lot to do in that Rear Window episode.
Right.
They had a story, but it wasn't nearly what that main story was, and to be honest with you, I can't even remember what it is right now.
I could not tell you right now.
And that's not good.
No, but I also think it's something where it shouldn't have been the focus. Like if.
No, but as long as they're
right, if
they don't have to be involved in the Rear Window story, but I shouldn't walk out of the episode feeling like they weren't in the episode.
Yeah.
That's all. Yeah. And I've had that a few times this season, especially with Sabrina and Jimmy. I do feel like they're focusing more on Burton, Virginia, and as I said, like I love them, but it's a strange thing when Jimmy's the center and he's the reason this all happened because he had the baby, and so like, where are you taking him? We should be following where you're taking him. And I loved when they decided they thought they were going to write a book together. When I was like, that's amazing. Let's see that. Let's see this happens. How can this happen?
But I will say, whenever they do the musical catch-ups in the beginning,
I do love the musicals.
Those are amazing.
Yes, that's
because
true.
It's just. But yeah, it's like for me, I'm very, very impressed that if I was just a casual viewer who had never, who didn't know Greg Garcia, who didn't know Mike, who didn't know any of these people, I feel like, again, to bring up Community, I feel like I would have known Community. I would have known that if something was going on with these people, that it was a different show last year.
Okay.
I don't think I would have necessarily looked at an episode of Raising Hope this year and gone, what's going on behind the scenes that it's making this so different?
No, but I think that you would have noticed it was different. But they maybe would have just said, it's a 4th season show. I feel
like the show's evolved every year. I mean, it's like
it has, but in a different way.
Yeah, because I mean, it's like even by season 2 they started Virginia. Sabrina and Jimmy started dating.
Right.
By season 3 they got married. I think if you're gonna bring those kinds of changes so early on in a show's run, you kind of have to keep up in the ante.
Yeah, I just think this particular change doesn't work for me as well as I would like it to, because I really like the show. Yes. So. We'll see. We'll see where it goes in the spring.
Those are our thoughts.
All right. I'm Danielle at Danielle TBD.
I'm Marisa at Marisa Rothman.
And stick around because we're going to come back with grading dramas.
Drama.